Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Watchung Booksellers Podcast, where we bring you conversations from our bookstore's vast community of book professionals who talk about what they do for the love of books. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marnie, and I'm here with my co-producer, Kathryn. Hey, Kathryn.
Hey, Marnie. Hey, everybody.
And in case you didn't know, this week is Banned Books Week. Launched in 1982, Banned Books Week is an annual event celebrating the freedom to read and raising awareness about the harms of censorship, coordinated by the American Library Association.
And this year, the theme for Banned Books Week is Censorship is So 1984. Read for Your Rights. And in honor of celebrating the freedom to read, we asked authors and booksellers and customers to share an excerpt from their favorite banned book.
We love to share this podcast with our community of book lovers, and we're really encouraged to have so many passionate readers come out to share a little bit about their favorite banned or challenged book. And speaking of books, Kathryn, do you have any to highlight?
The banned book that I'm going to pick is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. It's from 2017, and it's a YA novel about a Black girl who sees her close friend shot by a police officer. It's really tense and heartbreaking, of course, but it's also this lovely insight into this teenage girl and kind of all the things she has to go through, you know, as a regular old teenager, but also someone who's going through a lot of trauma. So it's great. And I loved it partly because my son read it when he was in middle school, and he brought it to me to read. And I'm really thankful that he had access to that book and any other book that he ever wanted to read. So I don't take it for granted. How about you, Marnie?
I want to recommend When the Emperor Was Divine by Julie Otsuka. It's a historical fiction novel based on Otsuka's family history about the Japanese-American family experience of internment during World War II. It was banned in a Wisconsin school district, and the reason was it was a one-sided form of history.
Oh, my God. Wow.
Yeah, which is wild. And my mother's Japanese-American, so it's personal for me. So yeah. And it's a beautiful book.
And she's such a good writer. I loved The Swimmers.
Yeah.
Hers too. That's amazing. Yeah. Indeed. So, everybody, we hope you enjoy hearing what our community of book lovers are fighting for. And we'll be back to fill you in after on what's coming up in the store.
Hello, my name is Henry Neff. I'm a Montclair author, but today I want to read from a banned book, a very well-known banned book called 1984 by George Orwell, originally published in 1949. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. Winston Smith, his chin nuzzled into his breast in an effort to escape the vile wind, slipped quickly through the glass doors of Victory Mansions, though not quickly enough to prevent a swirl of gritty dust from entering along with him. The hallway smelt of boiled cabbage and old rag mats. At one end of it, a colored poster, too large for indoor display, had been tacked to the wall. It depicted simply an enormous face, more than a meter wide, the face of a man of about 45 with a heavy black mustache and ruggedly handsome features. Winston made for the stairs. It was no use trying the lift. Even at the best of times, it was seldom working, and at present the electric current was cut off during daylight hours. It was part of the economy drive in preparation for Hate Week. The flat was 7 flights up, and Winston, who was 39 and had a varicose ulcer above his right ankle, went slowly, resting several times on the way. On each landing, opposite the lift shaft, the poster with the enormous face gazed from the wall. It was one of those pictures which are so contrived that the eyes follow you about when you move. Big Brother is watching you, the caption beneath it ran. Inside the flat, a fruity voice was reading out a list of figures, which had something to do with the production of pig iron. The voice came from an oblong metal plaque, like a dulled mirror which formed part of the surface of the right-hand wall. Winston turned a switch, and the voice sank somewhat, though the words were still distinguishable. The instrument, the telescreen it was called, could be dimmed, but there was no way of shutting it off completely. He moved over to the window, a smallish, frail figure, the meagerness of his body merely emphasized by the blue overalls which were the uniform of the party. His hair was very fair, his face naturally sanguine, his skin roughened by coarse soap and blunt razor blades, in the cold of the winter that had just ended. Outside, even through the shut window pane, the world looked cold. Down in the street little eddies of wind were whirling dust and torn paper into spirals, and though the sun was shining and the sky a harsh blue, there seemed to be no color in anything, except the posters that were plastered everywhere. The black mustachioed face gazed down from every commanding corner. There was one on the house front immediately opposite. "Big Brother is watching you," the caption said, while the dark eyes looked deep into Winston's own. Down at street level, another poster, torn at one corner, flapped fitfully in the wind, alternately covering and uncovering the single word, Ingsoc. In the far distance, a helicopter skimmed down between the roofs, hovered for an instant like a bluebottle, and darted away with a curving flight. It was the police patrol, snooping into people's windows. The patrols did not matter, however. Only the thought police mattered.
I'm Laura Marks Fitzgerald.
And I'm David Fitzgerald.
And we're going to read Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, A Passage.
At the end of the room, a loudspeaker projected from the wall. The director walked up to it and pressed a switch.
"All wear green,"
said a soft but very distinct voice, beginning in the middle of a sentence.
"and Delta children wear khaki. Oh no, I don't want to play with Delta children. And Epsilons are still worse. They're too stupid to be able to read or write. Besides, they wear black, which is such a beastly color. I'm so glad I'm a beta."
There was a pause, then the voice began again.
"Alpha children wear gray. They work much harder than we do because they're so frightfully clever. I'm really awfully glad I'm a beta because I don't work so hard. And then we are much better than the gammas and deltas. Gammas are stupid. They all wear green, and Delta children wear khaki. Oh no, I don't want to play with Delta children, and Epsilons are still worse. They're too stupid to be able."
The director pushed back the switch. The voice was silent. Only its thin ghost continued to mutter from beneath the 80 pillows. "They'll have that repeated 40 or 50 times more before they wake, and 120 times 3 times a week for 30 months, after which they go on to a more advanced lesson, till at last the child's mind is these suggestions, and the sum of the suggestions is the child's mind. And not the child's mind only, the adult's mind too, all his life long, the mind that judges and desires and decides, made up of these suggestions. But all these suggestions are our suggestions." The director almost shouted in his triumph. "Suggestions from the state."
I'm Kathryn Dykstra, and I have brought The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros, and I'm going to read from one chapter called My Name. In English, my name means hope. In Spanish, it means too many letters. It means sadness. It means waiting. It is like the number 9, a muddy color. It is the Mexican records my father plays on Sunday mornings when he is shaving, songs like sobbing. It was my great-grandmother's name, and now it is mine. She was a horsewoman, too, born like me in the Chinese year of the horse, which is supposed to be bad luck if you're born a female. But I think this is a Chinese lie because the Chinese, like the Mexicans, don't like their women strong. My great-grandmother, I would have liked to have known her, a wild horse of a woman, so wild she wouldn't marry, until my great-grandfather threw a sack over her head and carried her off. Just like that, as if she were a fancy chandelier. That's the way he did it. And the story goes she never forgave him. She looked out the window her whole life, the way so many women sit their sadness on an elbow. I wonder if she made the best with what she got, or was she sorry because she couldn't be all the things she wanted to be? Esperanza. I have inherited her name, but I don't want to inherit her place by the window. At school, they say my name funny, as if the syllables were made out of tin and hurt the roof of your mouth. But in Spanish, my name is made out of a softer something, like silver.
not quite as thick as my sister's name, Magdalena, which is uglier than mine. Magdalena, who at least can come home and become Nenny, but I am always Esperanza. I would like to baptize myself under a new name, a name more like the real me, the one nobody sees. Esperanza as Lysandra, or Maritza, or Zizi the X. Yes, something like Zizi the X will do.
My name is Amy Forsty. I'm reading an excerpt from Bridge to Terabithia by Kathryn Patterson, which was a really touching book for me when I was young and scared of death. It was a beautiful spring morning. Early wildflowers were dotting the deep green of the fields, and the sky was clean and blue. The creek had fallen well below the bank and seemed less terrifying than before. A large branch was washed up into the bank, and he hauled it up to the narrowest place and laid it bank to bank. He stepped on it, and it seemed firm, so he crossed on it, foot over foot, to the other side. Grabbing the smaller branches, which grew out from the main one toward the opposite bank to keep his balance, there was no sign of his paints. He landed slightly up street from Terabithia, if it was still Terabithia, if it could be entered across a branch instead of swung into. P.T. was left crying piteously on the other side. Then the dog took courage and paddled across the stream. The current carried him past Jess, but he made it safely to the bank and ran back, shaking great drops of cold water on Jess. They went into the castle stronghold. It was dark and damp, but there was no evidence there to suggest that the queen had died. He felt the need to do something fitting, but Leslie was not here to tell him what it was. The anger which had possessed him yesterday flared up again. "Leslie, I'm just a dumb dodo, and you know it. What am I supposed to do?" The coldness inside of him had moved upward into his throat, constricting it. He swallowed several times. It occurred to him that he probably had cancer of the throat. Wasn't that one of the 7 deadly signs? Difficulty in swallowing? He began to sweat. He didn't want to die. Lord, he was just 10 years old. He had hardly begun to live. "Leslie, were you scared? Did you know you were dying? Were you scared like me?" A picture of Leslie being sucked into the cold water flashed across his brain. "Come on, Prince Terrian," he said quite loudly. "We must make a funeral wreath for the Queen." He sat in the clear space between the bank and the first line of trees and bent a pine bough into a circle, tying it with a piece of wet string from the castle. And because it looked cold and green, he picked spring beauties from the forest floor and wove them among the needle. He put it down in front of him. A cardinal flew down to the bank. He cocked its brilliant head and seemed to stare at the wreath. P.T. let out a growl, which sounded more like a purr. Jess put his hand on the dog to quiet him. The bird hopped about a moment more, then flew leisurely away. "It's a sign from the spirits," Jess said quietly. "We made a worthy offering."
Hi, my name is Elena, and I'm reading A Light in the Attic by Shel Silverstein. Very controversial. And this is Clarence. Clarence Lee from Tennessee loved the commercials he saw on TV. He watched with wide, believing eyes and bought everything they advertised. Cream to make his skin feel better, spray to make his hair look wetter, bleach to make his white things wetter, stylish jeans that fit much tighter, toothpaste for his cavities, powder for his doggy's fleas, purple mouthwash for his breath, deodorant to stop his sweat. He bought each cereal they presented, bought each game that they invented. Then one day he looked and saw a brand new ma, a better paw, new and improved in every way. Hurry, order yours today. So, of course, our little Clarence sent off 4 to brand new parents. The new ones came in the morning mail. The old ones he sold at a garage sale. And now they are all doing fine. His new folks treat him sweet and kind. His old ones work at an old coal mine. So if your ma and pa are mean and make you eat your lima beans and make you wash and make you wait and never let you stay up late and scream and scold and preach and pout, that simply means they're wearing out. So send off 4 to brand new parents and you'll be happy as little Clarence.
Hi, I'm Susie. I'm a children's bookseller and the director of our school book fairs. And today I'm going to be reading Our Subway Baby, which is a picture book that is the true story of how one baby found his home. This is a beautiful adoption story that has been banned for containing a same-sex couple. It's by Peter Mercurio, illustrated by Leo Espinosa. Some babies are born into their families. Some are adopted. This is the story of how one baby found his family in the New York City subway. It was a cool August night in New York, and Danny was riding the subway home. On his way out of the station, he saw something tucked away in the corner. At first, it looked like a doll, but it wasn't. It was you. You were only a few hours old, wrapped up in a sweatshirt. Danny brushed your cheek. You wiggled your arms and legs. For a moment, time stopped, but then Danny jumped to action. He called the police, and then he called me. "I found a baby," he shouted. "Get here quick." I could practically hear Danny's heart beating through the phone, so of course I ran. You were in a police officer's arms the first time I saw you. You looked like an angel, and Danny and I couldn't take our eyes off you. The officer gently put you in the police car, and you yawned as if this sort of thing happened every day. We waved goodbye, hoping we'd see you again someday soon. A reporter picked up the story, and soon all of New York City wanted to know more about Danny and the baby from the subway. You made headlines in all the newspapers and on TV. We didn't know it at the time, but Danny had not just found a baby. He had found our family. Danny couldn't stop thinking about you, and so the next morning he went to the hospital, but they wouldn't let him see you. "Only family may visit," said the lady at the front desk. "I'm the person who found him," Danny said. "He doesn't have a family. I just want to make sure he's okay." "Thanks to you, he's a healthy little boy," the lady said. "Who knows what would have happened if you hadn't found him? The nurses named him after you and the subway trains. Danny, Ace, A-C-E, Doe." So Danny and I had to go on with our lives, and even though we had only known you a few minutes, we missed you. We wondered about you often. We learned that you were in a place, a foster home. Some babies stay in foster care for a short time, some for a long time. Some live in many different foster homes and grow up without a permanent home or family. Judge Cooper, the woman in charge of finding loving homes for many New York City children, didn't want that to happen to you. Luckily, she knew how you and Danny had found each other. She had heard about his visit to you in the hospital. She had seen him talk about you on the TV news, so she knew exactly where you belonged. But first, she wanted to meet Danny. In December, Judge Cooper called Danny to her courtroom. "You care a lot about this little boy, don't you?" she asked. Danny nodded. "A baby belongs with someone who loves him, and I think that's you. Would you like to adopt him?" Danny took a deep breath. In that moment, he knew adopting you was exactly what he wanted. "Yes, I am interested, but I know adopting a baby isn't always easy for two dads." "It can be," the judge smiled. "Where there is love, anything is possible." Danny was speechless. All he could do was nod again. He left the courtroom, excited about us starting a family together.
My name is Barbara Forsty. I'm reading from Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. She saw the dirty, torn dress and the plaits sticking out from her head, hair matted where the plaits had come undone. The muddy shoes with the wad of gun peeping out from the cheap soles. The soiled socks, one of which had been walked down into the heel of her shoe, and she saw the safety pin holding the hem of her dress up. Oh, she'd seen this little girl all her life. Hanging out of windows, over the saloon in Mobile, crawling over porches and shotgun houses in the edge of town, sitting in bus stations holding paper bags and crying to mothers who kept saying, "Shut up." Hair uncombed, dresses falling apart, shoes untied and caked with dirt. They had stared at her with great uncomprehending eyes that questioned nothing and asked everything. Unblinking and unabashed, they stared up at her. The end of the world lay in their eyes, and the beginning and all the waste in between. They were everywhere. They slept 6 in a bed, all the pee mixing together that might have wet the beds, each in his own candy and potato chip dream. In the long, hot days, they idled away, picking plaster from the walls and digging into the earth with sticks. They sat in little rows on street curbs, crowded into pews at church, taking space from the nice, neat colored children. They clowned on the playgrounds, broke things in the dime stores, ran in front of you on the street, made ice slides on the sloped sidewalks in winter. The girls grew up knowing nothing of girdles, and the boys announced their manhood by turning the bills of their caps backward. Grass wouldn't grow where they lived, flowers died, shades fell down, tin cans and tires blossomed where they lived. They lived on cold, black-eyed peas and orange pop. Like flies they hovered, like flies they settled, and this one had settled in her house.
I'm Kate Tuttle, and the book I want to read from is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, by Judy Blume, banned often for telling the truth about what it feels to be a 12-year-old girl, and that's why I like it. I'm going to read from a section where all the girls, including Margaret, are meeting for their little after-school club. Nancy called the roll. "Veronica?" "I'm here," Gretchen said. "Kimberly?" "I'm here," Janie said. "Mavis?" "I'm here," I said. "And so am I, Alexandra." Nancy closed the roll book. "Well, let's get to it. We all feel each other's backs to make sure we're wearing our bras." We all were. "What size did you get, Janie?" Gretchen asked. "I got a grow bra," Janie said. "Me too," I said. "Me too," Gretchen laughed. "Not me," Nancy said proudly. "Mine's a 32 AA. We were all impressed. "If you ever want to get out of those baby bras, you have to exercise," she told us. "What kind of exercise?" Gretchen asked. "Like this," Nancy said. She made fists, bent her arms at the elbow and moved them back and forth, sticking her chest way out. She said, I must increase my bust." She said it over and over. We copied her movements and chanted with her. We must increase our bust." "Good," Nancy told us. "Do it 35 times a day, and I promise you'll see the results."
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a bookseller at Watchung Booksellers, and my banned book of choice is Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. I think it's one of the best, most interesting books, even visually. The way it's printed in verse and with imagery is really powerful. And it's about stories that I don't think get shared too often. And I think it's important for young adults to be seeing these and feeling seen in these books. So I will start. Don't nobody believe nothing these days, which is why I haven't told nobody the story I'm about to tell you. And truth is, you probably ain't gonna believe it either. Gonna think I'm lying or I'm losing it. But I'm telling you, this story is true. It happened to me. Really, it did. It so did. My name is William Holloman. But to my friends and people who know me, just Will. So call me Will, because after I tell you what I'm about to tell you, you'll either want to be my friend or not want to be my friend at all. Either way, you'll know me. I'm only William to my mother and my brother Sean whenever he was trying to be funny. Now, I'm wishing I would have laughed more at his dumb jokes, because the day before yesterday, Sean was shot and killed. I don't know you, don't know your last name, if you got brothers or sisters, or mothers or fathers, or cousins that be like brothers and sisters, or aunties or uncles that be like mothers and fathers. But if the blood inside you is on the inside of someone else, you never want to see it on the outside of them. The sadness is just so hard to explain. Imagine waking up and someone, a stranger, got you strapped down, got pliers shoved into your mouth, gripping a tooth somewhere in the back, one of the big important ones, and rips it out. Imagine the knocking in your head, the pressure pushing through your ears, the blood pooling. But the worst part, the absolute worst part, is the constant slipping of your tongue into the new empty space where you know a tooth's supposed to be, but ain't no more. It's so hard to say, Sean's dead. Sean's dead. Sean's dead. So strange to say, so sad. But I guess not surprising, which I guess is even stranger and even sadder. The day before yesterday, me and my friend Tony were outside talking about whether or not we'd get any taller now that we were 15. When Sean was 15, he grew a foot, maybe a foot and a half. That's when he gave me all the clothes he couldn't fit. Tony kept saying he hoped he'd grow because even though he was the best ball player around here, our age, he was also the shortest. And everybody knows you can't go all the way when you're that small unless you can jump, like fly. And then there were shots. Everybody ran, ducked, hid, tucked themselves tight, did what we've all been trained to do. Pressed our lips to the pavement and prayed the boom, followed by the buzz of a bullet, ain't meet us. After the shots, me and Tony waited like we always do, for the rumble to stop, before picking our heads up and poking our heads out to count the bodies. This time, there was only one.
Hello, my name is Erin. I'm going to be reading an excerpt of The Kite Runner by Khalid Hosseini. When we were children, Hassan and I used to climb the poplar trees in the driveway of my father's house and annoy our neighbors by reflecting sunlight into their homes with a shard of a mirror. We would sit across from each other on a pair of high branches, our naked feet dangling, our trouser pockets filled with dried mulberries and walnuts. We took turns with the mirror as we ate mulberries, pelted each other with them, giggling, laughing. I can still see Hassan up on that tree, sunlight flickering through the leaves, on his almost perfectly round face, a face like a Chinese doll chiseled from hardwood, his flat, broad nose and slanting, narrow eyes like bamboo leaves, eyes that looked, depending on the light, gold, green, even sapphire. I can still see his tiny, low-set ears and that pointed stub of a chin, a meaty appendage that looked like it was added as a mere afterthought, and the cleft lip, just left of his midline, where the Chinese doll maker's instrument may have slipped, or perhaps he had simply grown tired and careless.
Hi, my name is Ellie. I'm going to be reading Water for Elephants by Sarah Gruen. The manager goes around the side of the big top and returns with a standard hospital-issue wheelchair. I let him help me into it and then relax my aching muscles as he pushes me toward the entrance. Don't mind Russ, he says. He's a good kid underneath all those holes, although it's a wonder he doesn't spring a leak when he drinks. In my day, they put the old fellows in the ticket booth, kind of the end of the road. You were on a show? The man asked. Which one? I was on two. The first was the Benesi brothers' most spectacular show on earth, I say proudly, rolling each syllable off my tongue. The second was Ringling. The chair stops. The man's face suddenly appears in front of mine. You were with the Benesi brothers? What years? The summer of 1931. You were there for the stampede? I sure was, I exclaim. Hell, I was in the thick of it. I was in the menagerie itself. I was the show's vet. He stares at me, incredulous. I don't believe this. After the Hartford fire and the Hagenbeck-Wallace wreck, that's probably the most famous circus disaster of all time. It was something, all right. I remember it like yesterday. Hell, I remember it better than yesterday. The man blinks and sticks his hand out. Charlie O'Brien III. Jacob Janowski, I said. The first. Charlie O'Brien stares at me for a very long time, his hand spread on his chest as though he were pledging an oath. Mr. Janowski, I'm going to get you into the show now before there's nothing left to see, but it would be an honor and a privilege if you would join me for a drink in my trailer after the show. You're a living piece of history, and I'd sure love to hear about the collapse firsthand. I'd be happy to see you home afterwards. I'd be delighted, I say. He snaps to and moves around to the back of the chair. Alrighty then, I hope you enjoy our show. An honor and a privilege. I smile serenely as he wheels me right up to the ring curb.
My name is Aaron, and I'm going to be reading from A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. It may not be nice to be good, little 6655321. It may be horrible to be good. And when I say that to you, I realize how self-contradictory that sounds. I know I shall have many sleepless nights about this. What does God want? Does God want goodness or the choice of goodness? Is a man who chooses the bad perhaps in some way better than a man who has the good imposed upon him? Deep and hard questions, little 6655321. But all I want to say to you now is this. If at any time in the future you look back to these times and remember me, the lowest and humblest of all God's servitors, do not, I pray, think evil of me in your heart, thinking me in any way involved in what now is about to happen to you.
Hi, my name is Tara Getter, and I'm reading Homeland, My Father Dreams of Palestine by Hannah Mushabek. At the family cafe, my father was greeted quickly with one kiss on each cheek by Amo Mitri. He was then put to work cutting cucumbers, chopping parsley, and preparing plates of olives and pink pickled turnips. The cafe was a popular destination for great thinkers. Poets, musicians, historians, and storytellers gathered to listen to the exchange of ideas at Al-Mukhtar's cafe. With a rare smile, Cito signaled to my father to follow him down to a hallway. Cito unlocked the iron gate and led him to a lush, sunlit garden. Hundreds of homing pigeons rustled in their wooden cages in the shade of a proud olive tree. The next moment, he released all the pigeons and skillfully guided them into a circle in the sky, with the help of only a black piece of cloth tied to the end of a long stick. With surprise and delight, my father asked, "Won't they fly away?" Cito shook his head slowly, and the key swayed at his side. "This is their home." That was the last day my father saw his grandfather, the last time he saw Palestine. Our eyes are heavy with sleep, but we want to hear more. "Show us the key," we cry. My father produces the large, rusted old key to our family's home in Jerusalem. We know the ending of this story is not a happy one. We know that we may never sit and watch the Juice Man by Haffa Gate, but we whisper the hope of return as we turn out the light.
My name is Randy. I'm going to read from 19 Minutes by Jodi Picoult. Ask a random kid today if she wants to be popular, and she'll tell you no. Even if the truth is that she was in a desert, dying of thirst, and had the choice between a glass of water and instant popularity, she'd probably choose the latter. See, you can't admit to wanting it, because that makes you less cool. But to be truly popular, it has to look like it's something you are, when in reality, it's what you make yourself. I wonder if anyone works any harder at anything than kids do at being popular. I mean, even air traffic controllers and the President of the United States take vacations. But look at your average high school student, and you'll see someone who's putting in time 24 hours a day for the entire length of the school year. So how do you crack that inner sanctum? Well, here's the catch. It's not up to you. What's important is what everyone else thinks of how you dress, what you eat for lunch, what shows you TiVo, what music is on your iPod. I've always sort of wondered, though, if everyone else's opinion is what matters, then do you ever really have one of your own?
And my name is Vivian, and I'm going to read Julian is a Mermaid by Jessica Love. This is a boy named Julian, and this is his abuela, and those are some mermaids. Julian loves mermaids. Vámonos, millas, this is our stop. Abuela, did you see the mermaids? I saw them. Abuela, I am also a mermaid. I'm going to take a bath, you be good. Julian has a good idea. Come here. Me, Abuela? For you. Where are we going? You'll see, says Abuela. Mermaids, whispers Julian. Like you, let's join them. And they do.
Hi, my name is Alex, and I'll be reading an excerpt from Animal Farm by George Orwell. Gentlemen, concluded Napoleon, I will give you the same toast as before, but in a different form. Fill your glasses to the brim. Gentlemen, here is my toast. To the prosperity of the Manor Farm. There was the same hearty cheering as before, and the mugs were empty to the dregs. But as the animals outside gazed at the scene, it seemed to them that some strange thing was happening. What was it that had altered in the faces of the pigs? Clover's old dim eyes flitted from one face to another. Some of them had 5 chins, some had 4, some had 3. But what was it that seemed to be melting and changing? Then, the applause having come to an end, the company took up their cards and continued the game that had been interrupted, and the animals crept silently away. But they had not gone 20 yards when they stopped short. An uproar of voices was coming from the farmhouse. They rushed back and looked through the window again. Yes, a violent quarrel was in progress. There were shoutings, bangings on the table, sharp, suspicious glances, furious denials. The source of the trouble appeared to be that Napoleon and Mr. Pilkington had each played an ace of spades simultaneously. 12 voices were shouting in anger, and they were all alike. No question now what had happened to the faces of the pigs. The creatures outside looked from pig to man, and from man to pig, and from pig to man again. But already it was impossible to say which was which.
Hi, my name is Lily Hannon, and I chose To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I willed myself to stay awake, but the rain was so soft, and the room was so warm, and his voice was so deep, and his knee was so snug that I slept. Seconds later, it seemed, his shoe was gently nudging my ribs. He lifted me to my feet and walked me to my room. Heard every word you said, I muttered. Wasn't sleep at all. It's about a ship and 3-fingered Fred and Stoner's boy. He unhooked my overalls, leaned me against him, and pulled them off. He held me up with one hand and reached for my pajamas with the other. Yeah, and they all thought it was Stoner's boy messing up their clubhouse and throwing ink all over, and he guided me to the bed and sat me down. He lifted my legs and put me under the covers. And they chased him and never could catch him because they didn't know what he looked like. And Atticus, when they finally saw him, why, he hadn't done any of those things. Atticus, he was real nice. His hands were under my chin, pulling up the cover, tucking it around me. Most people are Scout when you finally see them.
Hi, I'm Sarah Woolman, and this is Eric Carle's Draw Me a Star. Draw me a star, and the artist drew a star. It was a good star. Draw me the sun, said the star, and the artist drew the sun. It was a warm sun. Draw me a tree, said the sun, and the artist drew a tree. It was a lovely tree. Draw me a man and a woman, and the artist drew a handsome couple. Draw us a house, said the couple, and the artist drew a house. It was a strong house. Draw me a dog, said the house, and the artist drew a dog. It was a big dog. Draw me a cat, said the dog. Draw me a bird, said the cat. Draw me a butterfly, said the bird. Draw me a flower, said the butterfly, and the artist drew red and yellow and blue and purple flowers. Draw us a cloud, said the flowers, and the artist drew clouds with heavy rain. Draw me the night, said the rainbow, and the artist drew a dark night. Draw me the moon, said the night, and the artist drew a full moon. Draw me a star, said the moon. Down, draw, over, a star, left, oh, so, and right, bright. It was a good star. Hold on to me, said the star to the artist, and then together they traveled across the night sky.
Hi, my name is David. I'll be reading from the very beginning of Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. Everyone had always said that John would be a preacher when he grew up, just like his father. It had been said so often that John, without ever thinking about it, had come to believe it himself. Not until the morning of his 14th birthday did he really begin to think about it, and by then it was already too late. His earliest memories, which were, in a way, his only memories, were of the hurry and brightness of Sunday mornings. They all rose together on that day. His father, who did not have to go to work, and led them in prayer before breakfast. His mother, who dressed up on that day and looked almost young, with her hair straightened and on her head the close-fitting white cap that was the uniform of holy women. his younger brother Roy, who was silent that day because his father was home, Sarah, who wore a red ribbon in her hair that day and was fondled by her father, and the baby, Ruth, who was dressed in pink and white and rode in her mother's arms to church.
My name is Kristen Wald, and I'm reading from Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. What will happen, I wonder, to poor little Amy Dunn? No one cares about her. Her family feeds her and now and then cleans her up, but they don't love her or even like her. Her mother, Tracy, is only a year older than I am. She was 13 when Amy was born. She was 12 when her 27-year-old uncle had become raping her, for years managed to make her pregnant. Problem: Uncle Derek was a big, blonde, handsome guy, funny and bright and well-liked. Tracy is dull and homely, sulky and dirty looking. Even when she's clean, she looks splotchy, dirty. Some of her problems might have come from being raped by Uncle Derek for years. Uncle Derek was Tracy's mother's youngest brother, her favorite brother, but when people realized what he had been doing, the neighborhood men got together and suggested he go live somewhere else. People didn't want him around their daughters. Irrational as usual, Tracy's mother blamed Tracy for his exile and for her own embarrassment. Not many girls in the neighborhood have babies before they drag some boy to my father and have him unite them in holy matrimony. But there was no one to marry Tracy, and no money for prenatal care or an abortion. And poor Amy, as she grew, looked more and more like Tracy, scrawny and splotchy, with sparse, stringy hair. I don't think she'll ever be pretty.
Hi, my name is Emma, and I'm going to be reading The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Nothing changes instantaneously. In a gradually heating bathtub, you'd be boiled to death before you knew it. There were stories in the newspapers, of course, corpses in ditches or the woods, bludgeoned to death or mutilated, interfered with, as they used to say, but they were about other women, and the men who did such things were other men. None of them were the men we knew. The newspaper stories were like dreams to us. Bad dreams dreamt by others. How awful, we would say. And they were, but they were awful without being believable. They were too melodramatic. They had a dimension that was not the dimension of our lives. We were the people who were not in the papers. We lived in the blank white spaces at the edges of print. It gave us more freedom. We lived in the gaps between the stories.
My name's Gary, and this is Stregonona by Tommy DePaola. In a town in Calabria, a long time ago, there lived an old lady everyone called Stregonona, which meant Grandma Witch. Although all the people in town talked about her in whispers, they all went to see her if they had troubles. Even the priest and the sisters of the convent went, because Stregonona did have a magic touch. She could cure a headache with oil and water and a hairpin. She made special potions for the girls who wanted husbands. And she was very good at getting rid of warts. But Stregonona was getting old, and she needed someone to help keep her little house and garden. So she put up a sign in the town square. And Big Anthony, who didn't pay any attention, went to see her. Anthony said, Stregonona, you must sweep the house and wash the dishes. You must weed the garden and pick the vegetables. You must feed the goat and milk her. And you must fetch the water. For this, I will give you 3 coins and a place to sleep and food to eat. Oh, grazie, said Big Anthony. The one thing you must never do, said Stregonona, is touch the pasta pot. It is very valuable, and I don't let anyone touch it.
Hi, my name's Azul, and I'm going to read from The Color Purple by Alice Walker. Dear God, this the letter I've been holding in my hand. Dear Silly, I know you think I am dead, but I am not. I've been writing to you over the years, but Albert said you'd never hear from me again, and since I never heard from you all this time, I guess he was right. Now I only write at Christmas and Easter, hoping my letter gets lost among the Christmas and Easter greetings, or that Albert get the holiday spirit and have pity on us. There is so much to tell you that I don't know hardly where to begin. And anyway, you probably won't get this letter either. I'm sure Albert is still the only one to take mail out of the box.
But if this do get through, one thing I want you to know is that I love you and I'm not dead. And Olivia is fine, and so is your son. We are all coming home before the end of another year. Your loving sister, Nettie.
Hello, this is Nicole, and I'm reading The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. Everybody on the res calls me a retard about twice a day. They call me retard when they are pantsing me or stuffing my head in the toilet or just smacking me upside the head. I'm not even writing down the story the way I actually talk, because I'd have to fill it with stutters and lisps, and then you'd be wondering, why are you reading a story written by such a retard? Do you know what happens to retards on the res? We get beat up, at least once a month. Yep, I belong to the Black Eye of the Month Club. Sure, I want to go outside. Every kid wants to go outside, but it's safer to stay at home. So I mostly hang out alone in my bedroom and read books and draw cartoons. I draw all the time. I draw cartoons of my mother and father, my sister and grandmother, my best friend Rowdy, and everybody else on the res. I draw because words are too unpredictable. I draw because words are too limited. If you speak and write in English or Spanish or Chinese or any other language, then only a certain percentage of human beings will get your meaning. But when you draw a picture, everybody can understand it. If I draw a cartoon of a flower, then every man, woman, and child in the world can look at it and say, "That's a flower."
Hi, this is Kasha, and I'm going to read from The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. If you really want to hear about it, the first thing you'll probably want to know is where I was born and what my lousy childhood was like and how my parents were occupied and all that before they had me, and all that David Copperfield kind of crap. But I don't feel like going into it if you want to know the truth. In the first place, that stuff bores me. And in the second place, my parents would have about 2 hemorrhages apiece if I told anything pretty personal about them. They're quite touchy about anything like that, especially my father. They're nice and all, I'm not saying that, but they're also touchy as hell. Besides, I'm not going to tell you my whole goddamn autobiography or anything. I'll just tell you about this madman stuff that happened to me around last Christmas, just before I got pretty run down and had to come out here and take it easy.
My name is Izzy, and this is And Tango Makes Three by Justin Richardson and Peter Parnell, illustrated by Henry Cole. In the penguin house, there are penguin families. Every year, at the very same time, the girl penguins start noticing the boy penguins, and the boy penguins start noticing the girls. When the right girl and the right boy find each other, they become a couple. 2 penguins in the penguin house were a little bit different. One was named Roy, and the other was named Silo. Roy and Silo were both boys, but they did everything together. They bowed to each other and walked together. They sang to each other and swam together. Wherever Roy went, Silo went too. They didn't spend much time with the girl penguins, and the girl penguins didn't spend much time with them. Instead, Roy and Silo wound their necks around each other. Their keeper, Mr. Gramsay, noticed the 2 penguins and thought to himself, they must be in love. Roy and Silo watched how the other penguins made a home, so they built a nest of stones for themselves. Every night, Roy and Silo slept there together, just like the other penguin couples. And every morning, Roy and Silo woke up together. But one day, Roy and Silo saw that the other couples could do something they could not. The mama penguin would lay an egg. She and the papa penguin would take turns keeping the egg warm until finally it would hatch. And then there would be a baby penguin. Roy and Silo had no egg to sit on and keep warm. They had no baby chick to feed and cuddle and love. Their nest was nice, but it was a little empty. Then Mr. Gramsay got an idea. He found an egg that needed to be cared for, and he brought it to Roy and Silo's nest. Roy and Silo knew just what to do. They moved the egg to the center of their nest. Every day they turned it so each side stayed warm. Some days Roy sat while Silo went for food. Other days it was Silo's turn to take care of their egg. They sat in the morning and they sat at night. They sat through lunchtime and swim time and supper. They sat at the beginning of the month, and they sat at the end of the month, and they sat all of the days in between. until one day they heard a sound coming from inside their egg. Peep, 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 it said. Roy and Silo called back, squawk, squawk. Peep, peep, answered the egg. Suddenly, a tiny hole appeared in the egg shell, and then, crack, out came their very own baby. She had fuzzy white feathers and a funny black beak. Now Roy and Silo were fathers. We'll call her Tango, Mr. Gramsay decided, because it takes two to make a tango.
Hi, this is Michelle. I'm going to read from Nickel and Dimed by Barbara Ehrenreich. In my interview, I had been promised a 30-minute lunch break, but this turns out to be a 5-minute pit stop at a convenience store, if that. I bring my own sandwich, the same turkey breast and cheese every day, as do a couple of the others. The rest eat convenience store fare, a bagel or donut salvaged from our free breakfast, or nothing at all. The two older women I'm teamed up with eat best, sandwiches and fruit. Among the younger women, lunch consists of a slice of pizza, a pizza pocket, a roll of dough surrounding some pizza sauce, or a small bag of chips. Bear in mind, we are not office workers sitting around idling at the basal metabolic rate. A poster on the wall in the office cheerily displays the number of calories burned per minute at our various tasks, ranging from about 3.5 for dusting to 7 for vacuuming. If you assume an average of 5 calories per minute in a 7-hour day, 8 hours minus time for travel between houses, you need to be taking in 2,100 calories in addition to the resting minimum of, say, 900 or so. I get pushy with Rosalie, who is new like me and fresh from high school in a rural northern part of the state, about the meagerness of her lunches, which consist solely of a bag of Doritos, a half bag from the day before, or a freshly purchased small-size bag. She just didn't have anything in the house, she says, though she lives with her boyfriend and his mother. And she certainly doesn't have any money to buy lunch, as I find out when I offer to fetch her a soda from a Quick Mart, and she has to admit she doesn't have 89 cents. I treat her to the soda, wishing I could force her, mommy-like, to take milk instead. So how does she hold up for an 8 or 9 hour day? Well, she concedes. I get dizzy sometimes.
This is Diane from Watchung Booksellers. I happen to be a bookseller at the store in the adult section. I would like to read The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. It's one of my favorite books. I became what I am today at the age of 12 on a frigid, overcast day in the winter of 1975. I remember the precise moment, crouching behind a crumbling mud wall, peeking into the alley near the frozen creek. That was a long time ago, but it's wrong what they say about the past. I've learned about how you can bury it because the past claws its way out. Looking back now, I realize I've been peeking into that deserted alley for the last 26 years. One day last summer, my friend Ram Khan called from Pakistan. He asked me to come see him. Standing in the kitchen with the receiver to my ear, I knew it wasn't just Ram Khan on the other end. It was my past of unatoned sins. After I hung up, I went for a walk along Speckles Lake on the northern edge of Golden Gate Park. The early afternoon sun sparkled on the water where dozens of miniature boats sailed, propelled by a crisp breeze. Then I glanced up and saw a pair of kites, red with long blue tails soaring into the sky. They danced high above the trees on the west end of the park, over the windmills, floating side by side like a pair of eyes looking down on San Francisco, the city I now call home. And suddenly, Hassan's voice whispered in my head, "For you, 1,000 times over."
Hi, my name is Gabe. I will be reading The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I sit in the chair and think about the word chair. It can also mean the leader of a meeting. It can also mean a mode of execution. It is the first syllable in charity. It is the French word for flesh. None of these facts has any connection with the others. These are the kinds of litanies I use to compose myself. In front of me is a tray, and on the tray are a glass of apple juice, a vitamin pill, a spoon, a plate with 3 slices of brown toast on it, a small dish containing honey, and another plate with an egg cup on it, the kind that looks like a woman's torso in a skirt. Under the skirt is a second egg, but being kept warm. The egg cup is white china with a blue stripe. The first egg is white. I move the egg cup a little, so it's now in the watery sunlight that comes through the window and falls, brightening, waning, brightening again on the tray. The shell of the egg is smooth but also grained. Small pebbles of calcium are defined by the sunlight, like craters on the moon.
I'm Aubrey. I'm the kids' room manager and event planner at Watchung Booksellers. Lillian Duncan by Donna Gephardt has been challenged and removed from libraries and classrooms. The challenges come from the book's themes, which include a transgender character and a character with bipolar disorder. Lily Jo is not my name yet, but I'm working on that. That's why I'm in the closet, literally in my mom's walk-in closet with Meatball at my heels. I scratch under Meatball's chin, and his tiny pink tongue pokes out the side of his mouth. He's adorable like that. Practice, I tell Meatball. Only 6 days until school starts. I have to do this. I can't. I have to. Can't. I almost feel my best friend, okay, my only friend, dare push me toward the dresses. Thinking about my plan for the first day of 8th grade makes my stomach drop, like I plunged over the crest of a roller coaster at Universal Studios. I'm sure not one other person going to Gator Lake Middle is dealing with what I am. Probably not one other person in the entire state of Florida. Statistically, I know that's not true, because I looked up a lot of information on the internet, but it feels that way sometimes. Meatball's wagging his stubby tail so hard his whole body shakes. I wish the world were made of dogs. They love you 100% of the time, no matter what. I've got one for you, I tell Meatball as I pull a hanger from the rack. The past, the present, and the future all walk into a bar. I examine the summery red fabric, the tiny white flower print. I remember being with Mom when she bought this dress. Ready for the punchline? Meatball looks up at me with his big brown eyes, dark fur falling into them. It was tense. Silence. Holding the dress to my chest, I say, the past, the present, and the future all walk into a bar. It was tense, get it? Meatball tilts his head, as though he's trying hard to understand. I scratch under his chin to let him know he's such a good dog, and I'm a total dork for telling a grammar joke to an animal. Then I focus on the dress. These are lilies of the valley, Mom said, pointing to the flowers when we were in the store. She held the dress to her cheek for a moment. Those were my favorite flowers when I was growing up in Burlington, New Jersey. We had them in the garden in front of our house, near the pink azalea bushes. They smelled so good. I sniffed the flowers now as though the tiny bell-shaped blossoms will smell like anything other than a dress. I'm glad Dad's at Publix, I tell Meatball, and Mom's at her studio. Gives me time to put the first part of my plan into action, the practicing part. Half of me is so excited I could explode. It feels good to finally be doing this. The other half, where other people's voices jam together in my brain, is terrified. Excited, terrified. Yep, those are the right words. I take off my pajamas and let the dress slide over my head and body. The silky lining feels smooth and soft against my skin. It's hard to get the zipper up in the back. I consider going to Sarah's room and asking for help, but decide to do it myself, even though I know she'd help me. When I was little, I tried on one of Sarah's old dresses and loved how it felt, how I felt in it. When Mom came home from work that day, she laughed and made me whirl and twirl. Even Dad laughed, back then. What do you think? I asked Meatball while I twirl, feeling the skirt of the dress drift up, then back down against my legs. Meatball barks. I'll take that as an approval.
Hi, I'm Caroline. I work at the kids' room, and I am the school events director. I'm going to be reading from Akwaeke Emezi's Pet. It's a YA fantasy novel. It was banned in my home state of Texas for having a trans protagonist. So I'm going to read from chapter 1. There shouldn't be any monsters left in Lucille. The city used to have them. Of course, what city didn't? They used to be everywhere, thick in the air and offices, in the streets, and in people's homes. They used to be the police and teachers and judges, and even the mayor. Yeah, the mayor used to be a monster. Lucille has a different mayor now. This mayor is an angel. The last few couple of mayors have all been angels. Not like from heaven, not quite real type of angel, but from behind and inside out and in front of the revolution, therefore very real type of angel. It was the angels who took apart the prisons and police, who held councils prosecuting the former officers who'd shot children and murdered people, sentencing them to restitution and rehabilitation. Many people thought it wasn't enough, but the angels were only human, and it's hard to build a new world without making people angry. You try your best, you move with compassion, you think big structures. No revolution is perfect. In the meantime, the angels banned firearms not just because of the school shootings, but because of the kids who shot themselves and their families at home. The civilians who thought that they could shoot people didn't look like them, just because they got mad or scared or whatever, and nothing would happen to them because the old law liked them better than the dead. The angels took the laws and changed them, tore down those from horrible statues of rich men who owned people and fought to keep owning people. The angels believed, and the people agreed, that there was a good amount of proper and deserved shame in history, and some things that they were just never going to be proud of.
Thank you, everybody who joined us on this episode. Listeners, you can find links to the books mentioned on our website and show notes.
This Thursday, October 9th, Amanda Hess will be at the Montclair Public Library to talk about her book, Second Life, Having a Child in the Digital Age, with book reviewer Kate Tuttle.
And on Tuesday, October 14th, we host Christopher Gorham, author of Matisse at War, at the Montclair Art Museum. And the following night, October 15th, we welcome a hometown debut novelist, Caroline Palmer, to talk about her book, Workhorse.
And on October 27th, don't miss the return visit from Mona Awad for the release of We Love You, Bunny. Tickets are going fast, so be sure to grab one.
You can get details and tickets for all of our events, story times, and book clubs through our newsletter, show notes, or at watchungbooksellers.com.
The Watchung Booksellers Podcast is produced by Kathryn Counsell and Marnie Jessup, and it's recorded at Watchung Booksellers in Montclair, New Jersey. The show is edited by Kathryn Counsell, and original music is composed and performed by Violet Mujica. Research and show notes by Caroline Shurtleff. Thank you to the staff at Watchung Booksellers and the Kids Room for all their hard work and love of books. And thank you for listening. If you enjoy the show, please like, follow, and share it. You can follow us on social media at Watchung Booksellers. And if you have any questions or ideas, you can reach us at wbpodcast@watchungbooksellers.com. We'll see you next time. Until then, for the love of books, keep reading.